"Michael, the damage to your spine is significant. We'll do everything we can, but I need you to be prepared for the possibility of not walking again." It was a sunny spring day in Eugene, Oregon, known as one of the athletic centers in the United States. Michael Thompson, a promising middle-distance runner, was preparing for one of the most important races of his college career. He had a dream to compete in the Olympics, and his talent was undeniable. Michael, the son of Jamaican immigrants, possessed a tenacity and speed that seemed to flow through his veins. However, everything changed in an instant. During intense training at historic Hayward Field, Michael stumbled upon an obstacle unexpectedly. His coach, Coach Davidson, a veteran of the sport with over 30 years of experience, was the first to come to his side. "Michael, stay calm. I'll call for help," Coach Davidson said, trying to stay calm as he watched the young athlete squirm in pain. Michael was quickly taken to the Sacred Heart Medical Center, where doctors performed a series of tests. The news came as a shock: a severe spinal injury. Dr. Emily Wong, the neurologist who took care of him, went straight to the diagnosis. "Michael, the damage to your spine is significant. We'll do everything we can, but I need you to be prepared for the possibility of not walking again, let alone running," she explained, her voice blending professionalism with a dash of empathy. The silence that followed was heavy. Michael, staring at the white ceiling of the hospital, felt a mixture of unbelief and terror. His mother, Mariah Thompson, held his hand, trying to find words of comfort. "My son, you are strong. Let's go through this together. No matter what, I'm here," she whispered, tears running freely down her face. Over the next few weeks, while Michael dealt with the reality of his condition, he spent his days between physical therapy sessions and visits from friends and family. Coach Davidson often visited, bringing news from the team and keeping Michael's spirit alive. "Don't give up, Michael. Remember all the ones you inspire just by being who you are. There's still a lot you can do, on or off the track," the coach encouraged. Although every word of support was a balm, Michael's true journey was just beginning. He knew that somehow he had to challenge the odds, not just for himself but for everyone who believed in him. In the months following the devastating diagnosis, Michael Thompson's life was an emotional roller coaster. While confined to a hospital bed in Eugene, he watched the world continue to spin without him, his teammates competing and reaching new heights as he struggled to accomplish simple day-to-day tasks. The sport, his passion and escape, had been ripped from him in the blink of an eye. Michael struggled with a mixture of anger, denial, and sadness. "Why me?" was a question that constantly echoed in his mind. On one of these dark days, her sister, Alicia, brought an old photo album, hoping to rekindle the fighting spirit in her brother. "Look at you here, Michael. Remember that race? You were so far behind and still won. You've always had this incredible determination," Alicia said, as she leafed through pages filled with memories of past triumphs. Michael looked at the images, each with a stab wound to the heart. But something in his sister's words, or perhaps the twinkle in her eyes, made him begin to reconsider his situation. It was a moment of faint hope that grew more and more. Days later, an unexpected visit brought another twist. Craig Daniels, a gold medalist parathlete, appeared beside his bed. Craig, who also faced a similar tragedy, had a presence that radiated strength and understanding. "Michael, I know it feels like it's all over now. I've been right where you are. But there's a whole world out there for you. Paths you haven't even begun to explore," said Craig, his wheelchair positioned next to the hospital bed. The two talked for hours. Craig shared his own journey of pain, acceptance, and ultimately triumph in adaptive sports. Overcoming is not in victory over others, but in overcoming yourself, your doubts and fears, he explained. Inspired by Craig, Michael slowly began attending physiotherapy sessions with a renewed sense of purpose. Each movement was painful, not only physically but also emotionally. However, his mind began to open up to the possibility that he might find a new path in the sport, adapted to his new circumstances. At the same time, Michael faced internal confrontation. On a particularly difficult day, when a physical therapy session seemed more painful than usual, His frustration overflowed. "I don't know if I can do it, it seems pointless," Michael told his physical therapist, Lisa Nguyen. Point 2. Lisa, an experienced and patient professional, just smiled kindly and replied, "Michael, every little progress is a step towards your new goal. It's not useless, it's the foundation. And I'm here, we're all, to build it with you." These words, simple but powerful, helped rekindle the flame within Michael. He began to realize that although his journey had changed direction, the final destination could still be fraught with conquests. In the following months, every little progress in physiotherapy was a victory. Michael began using his experiences to motivate others by talking about his journey in blogs and videos, which quickly gained followers. People were inspired by his brutal honesty and determination to face what many saw as impossible. And it was on an autumn morning, as the sun came up and dyed the sky bright colors, that Michael, with the help of mobility devices, stood up for the first time since the accident. Tears ran down his face from everyone in the room, a mixture of joy and relief. Michael looked out the window, took a deep breath and muttered to himself, "This is just the beginning." The morning that Michael Thompson stood, even with the aid of mobility devices, marked the beginning of his true journey of recovery. At Eugene's Sacred Heart Medical Center, he not only struggled to regain movement, but also to rebuild his life and identity as an athlete. Under the supervision of Lisa Nguyen, his dedicated physiotherapist, Michael began an intensive rehabilitation program. The sessions were exhausting and often painful, but he was determined. He knew that every little movement was a step toward the impossible that now seemed a little more possible. "Let's try one more time, Michael. You can," Lisa encouraged while helping him perform muscle building and balance exercises. Each day, Michael felt his body responding, albeit slowly. He was learning to adapt not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. During his sessions, he often reflected on the words of Craig Daniels, the parathlete who had visited him. Inspired by this new perspective, Michael began to consider Paredes-Porto as an extension of his passion for athletics. Parallel to physical therapy, Michael was introduced to a sports psychologist, Dr. Helena Brooks, who worked with him to overcome the psychological challenges posed by the accident. Together, they explored visualization and mindfulness techniques, focusing on building a resilient mindset that could meet and overcome the numerous challenges ahead. Imagine crossing the finish line again, not as it used to be, but as it will be now. Feel the joy, the pride, the satisfaction of knowing that you exceeded all expectations, Dr. Brooks guided during one of his sessions. Inspired, Michael began to visualize himself competing in Paredes-Porto events. He imagined the track, the crowd, and most importantly, the sense of freedom that the sport had always given him. A few months later, with continued progress in rehabilitation, Michael was introduced to training in a sports wheelchair. It was a challenging adjustment, learning to maneuver the chair, understanding its dynamics, and especially accepting that this would be his new way of running. His former coach, Coach Davidson, along with a sports specialist, helped him adapt his athletic skills to the new equipment. The first sessions on the track were frustrating. Michael struggled to find the balance between strength and technique. "You have to adjust your expectations, Michael. It's not about how you do it, but what you do," advised Coach Davidson, seeing the frustration of his pupil. Despite the challenges, Michael persisted. With each lap on the track, he felt more adapted and his old passion for athletics began to resurface. He began to get more involved with the parathlete community, participating in workshops and events, where he met other people with similar stories of overcoming. This new community gave him not only support and friendship, but also a renewed sense of purpose. The real test came when he participated in his first wheelchair race. The event, small but significant, was held on a sunny afternoon at the same Hayward Field where his life had changed forever. As he stood on the starting line, Michael felt a surge of emotions. At the sound of the starting shot, he pushed with all the force he had, each movement a cry of defiance against the circumstances that tried to stop him. When he crossed the finish line, even though he did not win the race, the feeling was as powerful as any victory he had ever experienced. I really did," he said, breathing heavily as Coach Davidson and his mother, Mariah, ran to hug him. On that day, Michael not only crossed the finish line, but also crossed an internal barrier of doubt and fear. He knew that although the journey was long and full of more challenges, he was once again on the right track, racing not just for medals, but for something much bigger, a new life full of possibilities. After months of hard training and early competitions, Michael Thompson was ready to face his biggest challenge since the accident, to participate in the National Parathletics Championship. The event would be held at the same Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon, where his trajectory had changed dramatically. Now, Michael saw this return as a redemption, not just for himself, but as a source of inspiration for everyone who followed his story. The days leading up to the championship were intense. Michael, accompanied by Coach Davidson and his team, honed the last details of his technique in the sports wheelchair. They analyzed each previous race, each movement and strategy, seeking perfection. "You're ready, Michael. You've worked harder than anyone I know. Now just show everyone what you can do." Coach Davidson encouraged him the day before the championship. On the morning of the event, the stadium was packed with spectators who came to support the athletes, many of whom knew Michael's overcoming history. Among the crowd, his mother, Mariah, his sister, Alicia, and several people from his community vibrated with banners and posters. When Michael positioned himself at the starting line for the 400-meter race, his heart was pounding with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering Dr. Brooks' words about visualization. He found himself crossing the finish line, feeling once again what it was like to be a champion. The starting shot echoed through the stadium and, with a burst of energy, Michael and the other competitors fired. The sound of the wheels hitting the track, the cheering cries of the crowd, all fused into a blur of focus and determination. Michael pushed with a force that seemed to emanate from something beyond his own body. He overtakes one competitor, then another. Coach Davidson, on the edge of the track, shouted, "Go, Michael, go!" As the finish line approached, Michael felt an energy he hadn't felt since before the accident. He crossed the finish line, not first, but as a real winner in the eyes of all who watched. The stadium exploded in cheers and cheers. Coming down from the chair to hug his mother and sister, Michael felt the tears mingle with the sweat on his face. "I got it, Mom. We did it," he said as Mariah hugged him tightly. "You're our inspiration, Michael. You always have been and always will be," Alicia added, with a radiant smile. In the days following the championship, Michael Thompson's story was highlighted on various media platforms. He was invited to interviews and lectures, where he shared his journey of pain, struggle, and triumph. The message he conveyed was clear and powerful. Never give up. No matter how hard it seems, there is always a way to overcome. Michael continued to compete, but his impact went beyond the tracks. He began working with parathlete organizations, helping develop programs for athletes facing similar challenges. His legacy was forming not only in his victories, but in the inspiration he provided to others. With each new race, with each new lecture, Michael knew that his journey had a greater purpose. Not only did he return to the sport he loved, but he turned his experience into a source of hope and strength for countless people. If you liked this exciting story, help us by leaving your like and subscribing to our channel. Until the next story.